Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Zach.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe. Hey, guys.
Hello.
What are we talking about today?
Yeah,
we are talking about something big.
The big P, as Joe likes to call it.
Which doesn't make it any better than what it actually is.
It doesn't.
No, we are talking about today. It's going to be a two-parter. The harmful effects of pornography. We're going to try to bring it into like a hopeful message. I'm sure we'll give personal accounts, but we'll try to give it into a hopeful message about how God sees you and therefore how you should see yourself.
Yeah, just this idea that porn is something that's really... it's like an epidemic in our society. It's something that our society is very much struggling with, particularly men.
Mm-hmm. It's the old adage that 7 out of 10 men struggle with it, and the other 3 are liars.
Exactly. Like this idea is and with the internet, it's even more prevalent, and it's something very, very difficult, and it's something very complex, and something that obviously requires us more than one episode to handle. So, but we are looking to talk about that, about the effects of porn and why it's bad for you, why people do it, like why do you end up on it, like how can you heal from it. So hopefully in these next 2 episodes we can, or more, we find out that becomes necessary, that we can kind of unpack a lot of this and hopefully help a lot of people. And kind of just open a light on the conversation about this very difficult topic. So
yeah, I think it's good though. It's a long time coming. It needs to be said more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just happy to be doing it.
It's completely ignored or either glorified in mainstream society. So I think
it's one of those weird things that's like it's hidden, but it's also out in the open. Like it's this weird kind of existence where it seems like everybody's struggling with it, but everyone's afraid of it. Like,
yeah, and we'll talk about why that is a little bit more later.
But first,
let's talk about what we've been up to for 7 days.
Let's ease into this, boys.
Yeah, something with a lot less heaviness, hopefully. Joseph, how was your week?
Yeah, what did I do?
Only you can answer that question.
Yeah, until you guys know, then you guys can answer it for other people if they ever asked how I was. That's a weird way to say it.
Yeah, I couldn't follow that.
We're not exactly
people replay it like, what did he mean? Is that like an encrypted
I was trying
message?
To make sense of that. I was like, I don't think he said words there.
It is. I actually had a pretty decent week. The weekend, even better. But let me start with the week. Some key highlights. I had actually been praying about this for a good 2 years or so. I wanted to make an impact on my workplace in some way, shape. I basically every single day I was like, I want to be a light towards my coworkers. And then I kid you not, like maybe 2 weeks ago, a coworker had told me about like their testimony about something. I think I remember off camera I told you guys about this, just about health related reasons. But another coworker as well was just telling me how they fell away from church, but still like believe in God, love God. I talked with this coworker for 2 hours. Granted, I don't know if it's anything big to, gawk at, but at the same time, like, I think in that conversation, God was moving. Like, we were outside and talking. I think it was a good time. I think God was definitely moving in their heart. Nice. Then to top it off, I was really exhausted from the week, but in a good way. Like, I earned it. The Friday into Saturday, I slept for 12 hours.
Whoa.
I can't remember the last time I had done that. And I did it in like bits. So I slept from 5 o'clock until like 11 o'clock, like 11:15. And then like a half-hour break. I didn't even eat dinner. I was fine, weirdly enough. And then 11:45 onward, I woke up at like 7 or I don't remember. It's all a blur to me. But that was so restful, and I was so surprised at myself for doing that. Played guitar for church. That was good. Went on a hike with some friends from church, new people I had met too. Yeah, networking. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Very good. That sounds it.
Yeah, I don't think I've slept that much since maybe college. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I did have COVID that one time not too long ago, so maybe I did it then. Because you don't have much else to do when you're isolating in your parents' house. It's like I can't leave this room.
Yeah. I think the last time we did it was like after a long trip or something, and we traveled, and then like everybody, like the kids too, we all just like had like we slept in really late on one Saturday morning, and it was just like this is nice.
Bliss.
I'm amazed that your kids actually did that.
Yeah,
I don't think
the
my
only
nieces-
time, the only time they've ever slept in.
My one niece would probably never do that. She could probably stay up for like 3 days straight and then only sleep for like 6 hours.
Yeah, because
Like,
remember when we were
fine.
younger, we would want to get up as early as possible, like Saturday morning cartoons or play a video game or whatever, before anybody else woke up. That was
stuff.
me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Zach, how about you? How was your week?
It was really good. So I think I hinted on this last time, but I was the accompaniment for our. So we were having the women's conference for our diocese at the end of the week. So that was Saturday. But all the week up to that, like our capstone speaker, Meg Hunter-Kilmer, was taking a tour around the diocese, speaking at different places, like women's groups, youth groups, like Theology on Taps, like college groups. Like she was going around like the whole diocese, like talking to people. And I was kind of her accompaniment during that time. So I went to like most of the stuff that she went to, like as a representative of the diocese in case she needs anything or anything like that. Sometimes I would drive her. And then some of the things I didn't get to go to because I also had to do other work. But the idea is that it was just a really good week, which one, amazingly, she gave a different talk at every single thing that I went to. There was maybe some overlap when she was like answering questions or maybe just to hammer a certain point home. But like an overall, every single talk, and I went to like 6-7 talks, they were all different. And it was amazing. Like, I mean, she really spoke to my heart, at least. I know she really was getting at me and like stuff that I've been struggling with a little bit or like needing affirmation about, and just like kind of the way what she talked about, which was really boiled down to a lot about like personal relationship with Jesus, which is important. Is the area I know, like everyone has different areas they need to work on, but I know I need to work on that. That not just the doing of stuff, but like the having that personal connection. Because we're also the theme of the women's conference is like in line with the Eucharistic revival that's happening in the Catholic Church right now. So this idea of the Eucharist and encountering the personal person, that sounds redundant, the living person of Jesus Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. Just like really hammering that home. And her big thing is she talks about saints, especially like saints you don't know about, or like blesseds and venerables and servant of gods, like which are, for anyone who's listening that's not Catholic, there's like a systematic process of like confirming that someone is a canonized saint. I know it's blessed and then saint at the end. I don't remember which is first, servant of God or venerable, but there's like 2 steps before that. Anyway, so just she uses all these people as examples of like real life examples of people that, you know, struggled and you know, lived this stuff, and you know, imperfect people. And it just really helps with all of them. I mean, the one takeaway that I'll mention, there were a lot of takeaways, but the one thing that she boiled down to, which everyone needs to take this in the right frame of mind when I say this, but the one thing she said is that sometimes you need to stop searching for God's will and start searching for God. Because sometimes some people get so wrapped up in like, what does God want me to do? That you actually forget about, you know, like, hey, I'm God, I'm right here. You don't just need to do what I say. You could spend some time with me. You know, you could like get to know me, like, you know, have everything we talk about doesn't have to be me giving you orders, like type of thing. Or like this idea of that, not you're supposed to obey God. That's obviously important, but that it's better if you search for God first and then the will follows, rather than trying to do it backwards, like the other way around. Searching for God's will first, rather like you need to know God first before you can know what he is. Like, just like you need to know a person, like a friend, to know like what it is they want. Obviously, for all listeners, take that phrase as what you will, but that's the thing that just really struck me is you know, stop searching for God's will and start searching for God himself, and you will find the will along the way. Yeah, so anyway, that's kind of what it boiled down to, and it was just really great. It was really good. Everybody loved her, and it was, you know, she offered a good variety, because we had other types of speakers too. Like, you know, there's a bunch of different, that's the way saints saints and people in general in the church work is like this idea is everyone's so diverse and has different opinions and different things and connects to people in different ways. So she was a really good mix with like the other speakers that we had. So anyway, it was really good. So that was the majority of my week. I really didn't do much else. So yeah.
That's great, Zach. So, like, I think we have to remind ourselves and hear that message that it's not about like always like the orders. We just have to focus on also resting with him.
Very cool.
What about you, Josh?
I had a great week. I did another retreat again. So I drove out to do a retreat, and Claire went with me, which was really nice. We sang together and at a holy hour. And then we had like a little date day. So we went out to eat and stuff afterwards and drove back home. It was like 2 hours away. So it was just a nice little trip. Have the kids be watched, and we kind of enjoyed ourselves, which was great. And then let's see, I had like a really productive week. So like I finished all my school work really early, and like a lot of the topics were just really solid. Just thinking about the future and about like the business end. Because I'm in a music business class, and so it was just really nice. There's been a lot of like good conversations and kind of reflections on what's next, because I'll be done soon. I just finished today.
Get out.
This penultimate class, so I have one more class, but I
invite us to your graduation.
Yeah, there we go.
We're gonna host your graduation party in your own house with your own stuff. We're not providing anything, but we'll be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to provide the food and the drinks. Yeah,
you can help plan it, and we'll surprise you.
There you go. So that was really good. And then today I had a doctor's appointment for the first time in forever, which is I guess is a good thing.
Yeah.
It was fine, but there's something else too. Yeah. So today I had like a super productive day. And then on Sunday, so we did a tech-free day, which we've been doing the past couple Sundays, and it's like the best thing ever. We shut off our phones, and we just chill with the kids. We listen to vinyl music, and we play board games, and we just hang out on the floor with the kids. We play blocks for them, all this stuff. TV is off, like, it was just really nice. It's like one of my favorite days. But then actually that night we decided we were gonna work on some music, because Claire and I are like officially producing like a full-length Christmas album, which we're gonna be releasing. We're going to do like singles through November, and then December 1st, we're going to drop a 14-track Christmas album, which is dope. And we're putting in a lot of work and a lot of time. And this Sunday, we spent a lot of time working on it. And I'm super stoked to release that. And then we just been having a lot of discussions and a lot of things about the future. Because, I'm still looking for work, and I'm still trying to figure out what it is that the Lord wants me to do. And I think I figured it out. Like, I think I've been trying all these different things, and it seems like every, resume I send out, every application I send out's a no. But then the Lord is always pushing me into like performing for the church and within the church, and then also just like to create my own stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just focus on my own music, and then I'm going to take every odd job that I can making music for the church. I've already been, and I've been having a lot of opportunities that have been kind of coming along, because typically, if Claire can't make something, I'll say no to it. And oftentimes the people will be like, well, do you still want to go, Josh? Do you still want to come sing for us? And I'll say no. And so now I'm starting to say yes. And it's kind of building up my confidence again. And I've been practicing a lot, just kind of working on my own thing. And so now I'm going to just start saying yes to everything. I'm going to get out there and try this really hard. And then we'll see what the Lord blesses. And because that's it. Because I like constantly run away from my love. And the only thing that I'm like really good at in this world is like music. And I've always just said, no, you can't do this. It's stupid. Like nobody just tries to make a living doing music. But here I am in school learning that, hey, you dingus, it's possible. It's possible to do it. You just got to do it.
Josh, you're having right now a Rocky Balboa moment, because legitimately, like this is one of that, because beaten and battered you were before. No longer.
Yeah, I'm pursuing it with reckless abandon, and come what may. Again, I don't want success. I don't want to be a star. I don't need millions. I just need to make a living, And
you got a lot of heart, Josh. You do.
Yeah. And we'll be I'll be updating along the way. I'm going to pursue this forever, and I don't care if it means nothing. But I'm always going to do side stuff. I'm going to try my best to support the family, to work and to be good for the fam. But this is what I'm called to do. So I'm going to do it, and I'm sure the Lord will take care of us along the way. So
Yeah,
man.
I think that biggest thing is just keep saying the yeses and just let them work out however they work out. Because
yeah,
yeah,
I really realized like that's it. Like the Lord in my life, at least, he works by like if I'm doing something on my own accord, it's not good, and it like falls apart. And like I'm not saying I shouldn't work, because you should work, and I do work. But like if I'm trying to like, oh, I need this job, especially if it's like because the money's good, and then it's like it doesn't work. But then in the meanwhile, like in my peripherals, all these things are kind of popping up. Like, oh, why don't you come here and do this? Like, why don't you come do that? Like, why don't we do this? And then I'll either say no to them, or like I'm realizing that, oh, maybe if I do these things, it'll open up other doors, and maybe that's where the Lord's pushing me. So that's the new direction I'm moving in. Is like I'm just trying to be free to the Lord and to allow Him to work.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yes.
I was just rambling, but
no, I rambled in the beginning. That was not rambling for me.
We all ramble.
No, I was talking about like
Seizing
that
rambling.
like at that very first thing I said at the beginning of this episode.
That
was rambling.
That was actually rambling.
Yeah, that thing we didn't follow.
It made sense in my head.
All right, gents, you wanna
Here
dive
we
in?
go.
All right.
Slide in the DMs.
Let's do it.
That's
We're
how
gonna
it
talk
starts.
about it. Pornography.
Is there can we like segue into this somehow? I guess it's not really a good topic to segue into.
I don't know. Not really. I feel like we just gotta like.
It's like I was like so sweaty like
See,
after
guys,
my workout today, which reminds me.
I just feel like now we're stalling.
Well, I kept my window open, and a lot of this stuff kind of just like creeped in, kind of like how this problem just creeps into a lot of young boys' life.
I still wouldn't have called that the smoothest, but all right then.
That was good, Joe. That was good.
Yeah.
I affirm you. I saw your blinds moving, and I was like, "What's happening?"
And I had a cold chill running up my spine, as many.
We're gonna cut that out.
Yeah, we're gonna cut that out.
Where is this going? Yeah, we're cutting that out.
For fear that.
Just okay. All right. Nope, that was unnecessary.
Let's just stop this. And
all right.
Coda.
Episode over.
So, all right. So porn. So it is something that is very, very prevalent in our society. Or it's more prevalent now in our society than it has been. The problems with it, who knows whether it's better or worse now. I mean, now we know it's very prevalent. Now we know it's really prevalent. Do we know whether or not it's more or less? That's up to like, I mean, it probably is because of the internet and everything.
No, it 100% is. 100% is. It is more prevalent today.
Well, it tells you everything you need to. I don't know if I've said this in a previous episode. It tells you everything you need to know about our society when porn is free of use on the internet consumption.
Yeah. It's free of price. Is it free of cost? No. And we are going to be talking about that. The first thing I want to put out there before we even start is this whole idea is, as we've talked about, porn has become more normalized in our society. Normalized with air quotes, like normalized in our society. And we talked about how, people see it. It's like, first of all, it's incredibly perturbing that it's become part of modern day society. Like, so this idea, even just like something like Friends, made it way too normal. It's like, Chandler looks at porn. That's funny. And it's like, that's what kind of unfortunately started us down this road of now, unfortunately, that everyone's like, oh yeah, porn's normal, but at the same time everybody is so taboo about it. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is that everyone always fights with this argument, and it's like, oh yeah, it's natural. And to that I have to say, yes, sex is natural.
Yes,
but like natural sex is natural. This idea is you having sex with yourself in front of a phone or a screen or a picture, that is not natural at all. And nor is it natural for you to witness other people having sex. That is not natural. Like that is like, if you think that's natural, then you go over to some neighbor's house, knock on their door, and ask whether or not you can watch them have sex tonight, and you see what kind of response that you get. Like this is
True.
like this idea is this is not a natural thing. Like yes, feeling sexual arousal, yes, is natural, and having like good sex the way God made it to be is natural. But this, like the whole idea of pornography is tricking you into thinking it's natural because it's based on something natural. But the whole action, like if you look at yourself from outside your body, like this is not something that's natural.
Yeah, fly on the wall. You would know that what you're doing is harmful to you.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, if you watch someone else watch porn, that makes you uncomfortable. So that should be an indicator like that this is not natural.
Well, I think, we should mention our own kind of experience with this, right? So we're coming from a place of like,
We relate.
Yeah, fighting the good fight. We're all doing that in our own existence, right? So like we're not coming from like a high position looking down upon you. We're not upon our high horses. Like that kind of mentality. We're in it.
Yeah. So I mean,
in the trenches.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because I was diving so far so quick. It's just, but you're right.
Yeah, take a step back. We don't want to bash it before. We don't want to appear, holier than thou or whatever. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, as you guys said, I know I this is something I've struggled with in my life. This has been a problem for me. This has been something that has been, as I said, a struggle, a battle, and it's a battle I'm still fighting. I mean, I do feel confident that I'm better than I was. Like I'm not as bad off as I was earlier in my life. Through getting help in certain ways, but it's definitely an ongoing thing. It's definitely something that that still challenges me, that still struggles me, and I'm trying my best to fight the good fight and do the things necessary. But yeah, I mean, it is something, and it's something I was ashamed of for a really long time, and not that I still don't recognize that it's bad and I want to get rid of it, because of course I do. But this idea is that this idea of needing to look, perfect, or like needing to look is like, oh no, I don't struggle with that. I don't struggle with that. I think it was just making me feel so ashamed. Like I was putting on that facade, but that I was, but I think I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm struggling with it. Even if I am like ashamed that I've done it, I'm doing it. And like, I'm not ashamed anymore to admit that it's something that I've struggled with.
It's important to be honest. It really is, because then we get the whole Philistine thing. Like when you're hypocrites and you're whitewashed tombs and all that stuff. We want to be honest with ourselves and with others, about the struggles that we go through, and it's just important to have that, even for the sake of accountability, like just and to just get it out there, because oftentimes when it's stuck within us, it just gets worse and it ferments. And we just it's very important to get it out there.
And I think the reason that a lot of guys do not quit so easily is because of the fact that it is not talked about. Yeah.
I think the discussion is happening more and more, and I think in the right circles, but I don't think it's hitting. It's falling on deaf ears, I think, because of the societal normalization of it.
Yeah.
But thank you for saying that, Zach. Appreciate you, man. I think all of us can say that too, right? So I know for me, it was introduced to me as a kid, and then I didn't know it was bad because I grew up in kind of a secular home where it's not like it. I wasn't told, Josh, pornography is bad, but yeah, obviously I think we're instilled with the morality and within our hearts and all that stuff to know that there's guilt that comes along with it and all that. But it wasn't until I was learning about the Catholic faith and then learning about the theology of the body that I was like, oh, this is meant for something beautiful, and we're meant to image the divine love, and it was kind of through that I was able to get released from it. But yeah, I mean, it was a struggle for a long time. I had friends. I mean, I grew up in public school, and like after school, like that's what people did. They would pull it up on their phones, and while they were in clubs, and it's sick. But I would have friends in the back while we were at like a history club or something after school, and there was a teacher talking about knights fighting, and there'd be guys watching porn in the back. Like,
get out!
It's just a common thing. Like it was everywhere, and it's sad and it's horrible. But that's just it. That's just how life is, And if there's not people to say, "Hey, this hurts you, and it's going to hurt you, and you're going to see how it's going to hurt you if you keep this up. Then what are they going to do? And it's such a taboo topic that, they don't know any better. People don't talk to them, kids about this stuff, and it's important to do that. But, but yeah, so that's kind of my experience with it. Yeah.
So for me, I was exposed at an actually particularly young age. Like Josh, like Zach, I was instilled with, it was unsaid, but at the same time, like it was instilled that, yeah, it is bad. But at the same time, it was exposed to me at kind of a young age, more like at a sleepover. I think I was like 11 or 12 when I first saw that. I'm like, oh, what the heck is this? Because like they were all just like, hey guys, have you seen this? So that was the moment where innocence was lost. And I can, I don't know. It's still ingrained in my mind of like, why did I like I wish I hadn't have gone. But granted, I'm here telling this story today for a purpose. Lust is a huge problem for a lot of guys, and out of all the deadly sins, I'm sure that it was one of the hardest for me, particularly in high school, actually. Where you have a lot of guys that, objectify women. And I grew up in a Catholic school too, and it was just looked away by a lot of teachers too. And so constantly being exposed to that while also being angry at the world for my own reasons too, used as an escape from that anger. And when I finally came back to God in college, I mean, I'd always gone to mass, but when I finally came back to God in college, I think that's when I finally understood the importance of, one, the body, but also of, your relationship with God, and that he loves you. And that, it's just unnatural, this whole concept, and it's so normalized in society, and it's sickening.
Yeah, I know. For me, I might have been exposed in general at a little bit of a later age, but I know it really started hitting me more like when phones and social media kind of came into their advent. That's like when it started.
It blew up.
Yeah, and it's just like, for me at least, it was like unavoidable. It's just that, like, you stumble upon it just without meaning, or you stumble upon stuff that's like suggestive that to like, and you end up going deeper, and then all of a sudden, you're in the midst of it. It was just like, it's that idea is that it was so accessible to the point that you even accessed it when you didn't want to. And so that's kind of, at least for me, the advent of social media. And it's why I don't dabble into social media a whole lot anymore. It's just that it's like a gateway to all of that. And it's not, they're not, porn, like social medias aren't porn sites, but like you can still find that stuff on there. And it's, I don't know, at least for me, that was like when the struggle started, was when the advent of that stuff. Because it's, if you have like a good enough standing, you can have a little bit more restraint when it comes to like magazines and stuff. You're just like, oh, I just won't go to that place and buy that stuff. But like, it's hard when your phone's always in your hand. Like it's literally always there. And
you've been
the temptation is always there.
You've been programmed to answer it, and how your brain desires it because of the dopamine responses, and then everything on it is triggering you. Like, yeah, it's crazy. I would say, like with I would say phones and just the internet in general, right, has completely blew it up hardcore. I mean, well, that's the joke, right? Is like the first one of the first websites ever created on the internet was a porn site, right? That's just like the nature of the person, whatever. But
so guys, why is it such a bad thing?
Or why is it harmful? I think that's why we should phrase it more. It's not just like the fact that this is a taboo bad thing that someone labeled as bad or culture labeled as bad, and so that's bad. Like, no, it's not just bad, it's harmful. It's harmful. It hurts you, it hurts the other people involved. Like, and you're talking about what people? It's like, the porn stars, the people in your life. There's just so many other people just linked to this, and not just you. So like, this idea is that it's harmful. So maybe we should start like why is it harmful to the individual watching? Like why is it harmful to people who are watching the porn? So why is it harmful to you, me, and anybody else who might be looking at this stuff?
And I think even right before that, guys, I think just one thing to say is the argument of like moral reasoning and like when a decision is good or bad, like even just talking about that, right? So like Thomas Aquinas had this whole thing, and I was like, there's different aspects of a statement, right? Like you have the subject, you have the purpose, you have like the setting, like all this stuff. And if any one of those things has an improper or inordered or bad kind of ending or result, like it makes the statement bad, right? So the very nature of pornography is the usage of a woman for an end that is unnatural, okay, that is disordered from the purpose of the act. So therefore, it itself is intrinsically evil and bad because of that.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's the antithesis of marriage because it's not free. It's not freely given. It's not mutual. It's not between two people. It's not mutually consented. But it cannot bring forth life. You know, everything that sex was meant for within the confines of marriage, pornography is the complete antithesis.
Twisted. Yeah, completely twisted.
Not even more so than like, not saying, not condoning these actions, these are all bad too, but like, you know, even more so than like stuff like adultery. Like, you know, it's even more twisted.
Fornication. Yeah.
So, as Josh said, morally speaking, this is happening outside of the confines in which it was meant to be done. So therefore, it is not good. I know one person, I think I might have used this analogy at some point. Maybe I didn't. I'm thinking of a different discussion. But the idea of like a fire. So like imagine your sexual nature is like a fire. So a fire in a fireplace is great. And the fireplace is marriage. All right. It's good. It gives warmth. You can cook with it. It heats the house, like all that stuff. But if the fire gets outside of the fireplace, it destroys the house.
Right.
Yeah. So it's in order. It's disordered.
Yeah.
It's not for improper order. Yeah.
So
okay, great. So then why is it harmful to act and to engage in this evil thing? Yeah.
Because I think some people there's lots of ways that it's harmful. Obviously, there's the physical, there's the mental, there's the spiritual. So for all of you, like whichever reason I guess strikes you the hardest, I mean, obviously they all should, but like, you know, this idea is that maybe some people won't respond to if you tell them it's wrong. It's like, oh, because, you know, it's bad for your soul and stuff. Well, it's like, well, okay. I mean, but from even a non-spiritual perspective, that this thing is harmful for you. Like it is harmful. And so maybe we can go into some of those reasons. So who would like to go first? Who's got one they'd like to throw out there?
Joe,
absolutely. Pornography, the more that you do it, like it's more likely to desensitize the viewer. You know, porn allows someone to become so conditioned by these sexual acts, and the more that you do it, the more depravity like you probably will see, you know, including violence in there as well. They might think of that as like, oh, this is a necessary thing, this is an integral part, but you know, porn, it's fantasy. It's not factual by design. It's fantasy. You know, everything is scripted. Everything is fake. It's unreal. You know, all these performances by these actors. You know, typically the women involved, you know, have an unrealistic performance, and this can lead to a twisted view of women too, and also twisted view of the body too, because a lot of the stuff that they do is just not natural. And if you try to perform this yourself with your wife, you're probably going to, you know, get injured, you know, for one thing. That's horrible.
Or just disrespect them.
Yes.
In some kind of capacity, right? So I think even that, just outside of a physical violent thing, just out of respect for your spouse. But I really want to hammer home this idea of how it desensitizes the person and how it triggers you, because there's a part of the brain, I forget which part it is, but it either shrinks it or it enlarges it every time you use this. And then because of that, it like causes your threshold to kind of shift up a little bit more. So like the softcore type of stuff that it normally would excite you no longer excites you. So every time you need a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So eventually your brain's like, I need the hardcore stuff that even was today is accessible, but you know, 100 years ago was not accessible. And so that's a serious issue, because then it kind of twists your desires and says, I need this in order to have these emotions and to be able to get aroused or to be in this place. And that's a serious issue. Because
Yeah.
eventually, God forbid, you ever get married with this situation, and your wife is in the scenario, like that's not good. You don't want to have that.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of like going back. Well, one, as Josh said, this idea, it's like hard drugs. Like, this idea is that
Yeah.
you have to you need more and more and more and more in order to satisfy your desire.
Mhm.
And it just, it gets out of control really quickly. And that's what makes it partly addictive. But I want to kind of hammer home what Joe said about like the idea of the fantasy, that a lot of these women that are in these, well, first of all, these women, the women in the photos and the videos and everything are not what they appear to be, as Joe said, because they're actresses or actors, and that they're being forced into doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, we'll talk about this later, and when we talk about how this negatively impacts the people in the porn industry, but we'll stick with ourselves first, like how the viewers are impacted. But I just want to also highlight the fact that a lot of the women in these photos are not real. Like they are literally not real. Like I know there was this thing that's Maxim magazine, at least way back when there was just, when there was like, when everyone was into porn magazines and things, they admitted to completely computer generating women, like completely fake, like nothing about them was real. Like it was a complete, like their cover models and stuff were all completely came from a computer. And people still do that with videos. I mean, with technology now and how it's advanced, people still do that with photos. People still do that with videos. Either they're completely fake, not real, or they are current women who have been altered to look completely unrealistic, like, to this point where they do not look like a real woman anymore. And this idea is then that conditions the viewer to expect that that's real, real. That's how a woman should look. So then when inevitably no woman in the world really looks like that, then they'll never be satisfied, because it's twisted and distorted, like what their image of even women in like the sexual sphere is supposed to look like. And it no longer, and they don't. And so they end up getting disappointed because they were falling in love with a fantasy. So that's crazy. That's just like literally blows my mind, is that it's just that half the time it's like, wow, you think you're really connected with this person. This person is not a person. This person's not real. So I don't know. That blows my mind.
Yeah. So, and I guess there's that argument to be said where, like, what if someone says, well, what does it matter if the person isn't real? Like, what would we say in response to that?
First of all, that hurts my heart. That hurts my heart to hear that. It's just like, well, it doesn't matter.
But there's some people that
it might not matter in the
way,
short term, but like in your relationships, as far as that's concerned, and that feeling of satisfaction, which is ultimately, you would want to get out of the matrix, so to speak.
Yeah,
and
to
that idea
realize
is
that there is a lot more to life than pixels on a screen.
Like I know Pope John Paul II, I'm pretty sure, said this, is that the problem with porn is not that it shows too much, is that it shows too little. And that almost emphasizes that even more, because the person's not real. That person doesn't have a soul. The person doesn't even have a body, like a real body. Like this idea is like you can't see the person behind the picture. And I think it's like, I think we've talked about this before, but like this disconnection between yourself and the other person you're relating to. And this isn't just happening in pornography, but even stuff like, I know I say this all the time, I'm not against esports or video gaming in general, but this idea is, I feel like a lot of the competitive culture can get toxic because you can't see the person. When you can't see the person and that they're a person and that they have feelings and that they have a soul and that they are
they have a mother. They have a mom.
Yeah. So it's like in both situations, like it's like you're not seeing that they are a person, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So what else? What else we got? So this idea is that it distorts your sexual desire to the point where it needs to be either too high or it's like not correct, or like you don't see women the right way.
The more sexually explicit material you see, the more you are less bothered with it. You know?
Right. And then I feel like from there, like I guess the next stage is like, then it becomes kind of more tolerant. Like there's a tolerance that then comes from this. And I feel like that oftentimes that can stem into like our everyday interactions, right? Especially when you're kind of encountering just women in your normal existence, your normal life. Like just the fact that your brain because of the neuroplasticity is being rewired by these acts, that just naturally it's seeing women as a different thing, right?
Yes.
And so because of that, creating this kind of tolerance, but also this, kind of these twisted desires towards just the women that we interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and that can
Call them
manifest in
porn
that can
goggles.
Yeah, it
Yes.
can manifest into something like in your actual day-to-day affairs, like promiscuity, even violent actions and aggression.
Yeah, and then you see sexual harassment in the workplace. You see all these things that are kind of stemming up, especially in the world that we live in today, where this could be a reason as to why.
Yeah, this idea of and just being unable to even control your sexual desires, and like just this idea is that your attitude changes. You see women differently, like you look at them in a different way, and like you might not notice it. You might think that you're still acting the same way as before, but like it as Josh said, like especially when you're young, like your brain is still developing, and if it wires itself incorrectly because of this stuff,
it becomes a part of your development,
damaging.
Like it's like for teenagers who are his brain is just marinated in pornography. Like your brain is literally developing and seeing women as an object.
Yeah.
Like that's
so
okay.
And this idea, I mean, all of this literally also just kind of comes down to, that good old Pavlovian classical conditioning. For anybody who doesn't know about Pavlov's dog, this idea is that
pay attention in science.
That's psychology, but
psychology.
It's also science class too.
I guess so. But like this idea of a trained response. So like with Pavlov, like he would ring a bell, put food out for the dogs, and he would do this again and again and again, to the point where when he would ring the bell, the dogs would just salivate because they're expecting food. They didn't consciously think it just happened. So like this is kind of what you're doing with porn when you're rewiring it, your brain. You're creating like a conditioned response. And like there's a lot of other things, Josh said this, the way you look at women, we talked about your sexual expectations, like all those change, but there's other things too. Like the idea is that, with porn, like how long do people really look at images in porn? Like 10 to 15 seconds, and then they move on to the next one. You're classically conditioning your body to operate the same way. So it becomes really hard for you to commit to one person because you're so used to just scrolling.
Right.
And like, so you have that problem. You get bored easily. So like in relationships, you get bored easily. Like you're training your brain to do this, to expect change. Like every so often.
I think even if we talk about it from the scientific aspect, right? So like the brain, we have these like neuro pathways, these neuro highways within our minds that send the neurotransmitters, the excited hormones that kind of travel through these different lanes within our brain whenever we kind of are triggered by these things. And then the more that we are triggered by them, the more the lanes grow, and the more they get bigger and they get stronger, and like all this stuff happens. And then all of a sudden the other ones on the outside that may trigger like your your temperance or like your prudence to say no to something, they get weaker and weaker within the brain. So then that causes like every time it gets a little bit easier, and then it's more because your brain is it's a muscle, right? And if you use parts, they grow. If you don't use parts, they shrink. Like just the nature of our
I think
brain.
that's a good
stuck in these places,
I think that's a good segue into like one source that I did want to bring up from the Neuroscience of Internet Pornography Edition, a review and update. I will link all these links in the description. But in this 2015 study, they called it the withdrawal / negative affect. And I'll quote it right now. The dopamine flood has run its course, and there is activation of the extended amygdala, an area associated with pain processing, fear conditioning. The resulting negative emotional state leads to activation of brain stress systems and dysregulation of anti-stress systems. So this leads thus to a decreased sensitivity to rewards and an increase in the reward threshold, which is called tolerance. So basically, porn consumption, it's an escape from reality. That's one of the reasons why people do it, as a way to deal with stress and life, you name it. Like giving quick hits of dopamine each time. And all of this can lead to full-blown addiction, very similar to hard drugs or gambling.
And the whole argument is that it triggers the same way that cocaine does, and it responds the same way in both ways of use, and then also through withdrawal. It's also the same kind of effects and the addictive response as it. Yeah, there's been over, I think recently it was just updated, there's been over 56 studies on the addictive model of pornography use. And without a doubt, like, this is an addiction. This is a drug that's happening. And sure, you're not using something like physically, like within your body, but like it functions the same exact way as if you were snorting cocaine. You just don't have those same effects. Like,
yeah. And there's like psychological explanations to that too that we'll go over more when we get to like why do people do porn and like why do they get into it. And you know, the biggest thing to highlight, you know, is the cycle of shame. But we'll get to that, like, you know, how shame fuels addiction or like isolation fuels addiction. We'll get to that in terms of like going more into the psychological reasons of like why do people go into porn. But they're right. I mean, you guys are totally right. This idea is anything that releases that much like dopamine, like that. I mean, dopamine itself is like a chemical, and it's addictive. Like, you know, this idea is, especially if you use it as a way of escapism from something, it's partly you're classically conditioning your body that when you experience some sort of stressor, that you automatically want this thing that like helps satiate that. And once again,
because you have that neural pathway that is like, it's like a, you know, a path in the snow that it's going to keep going. It's just the easiest path to get home, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and so you got to keep using that.
Yeah. On the other side, obviously there's two people involved in this sin. Well, actually, yeah, there's always two people involved, even if the woman's fake and someone's creating the image. But I mean, there's always people on the other side of porn. Everyone says, oh, well, no one gets hurt. Like, no one gets hurt. And it's like, that is completely not true when it comes to like the real people that are on the other side. I mean, the life of a porn star is frankly terrible. First of all, their mortality rates are incredibly high. Like, you know, this idea is that they are abused and used, enslaved so much. You know, they get addicted to drugs because they use them to like get them to, you know, do what the things in porn. They like, or once again, they're abusing them, or they are, they suffer from plethoras of, you know, STDs because, you know, they're obviously in some videos, you know, they're actually, you know, doing it with people, and like no one cares about them or their health. And so they're like flooded with all of these, you know, STDs and other health issues. You know, if they get pregnant, obviously the guy running the porn, like whatever it is, the company or whatever, is going to have them get an abortion because, you know, obviously that's a problem if they are going to have a baby. And so, you know, multiple abortions later, obviously their insides are completely messed up because how many times can you get cut open and, you know, have it? I mean, we're not even going to get into the negative impacts of abortion in general, but like this idea is just this idea of, once again, being filled with all of this, you know, disease and then being cut open and sealed back up so many times, just being incredibly hurt from a physical perspective. And just obviously it's no secret that pornography perpetuates human trafficking too. Like that's like one of the main reasons people like prostitution and pornography is the reason why women are trafficked. I mean, men too in some cases, but like women, like it perpetuates them. And do you think those people are free? You know, people are saying, oh, women should be free to do as they want. And it's like most of these women are not doing this because they want to. And it's just, I'm talking about it just breaks my heart. It just, and they're super heavily ignored too. They're like neglected as well. It's like they do their job, they do the sexy whatever thing, and then they're just like thrown in a corner, if not worse, and just, you know, brought back out the next time that they're needed. But they're incredibly mistreated, and it's and I'm not trying to be accusatory here, but this idea is that unfortunately the pornography industry and like looking at porn that perpetuates that. And it's a real thing, is that person that you are looking at more often than not, except on those times I was talking about, is a person that is hurting, and a person that is just in a terrible situation. Even if they are doing it freely, more than likely it's because they're being manipulated into thinking that. Like they're damaged spiritually and mentally into thinking that. Most of them are victims of abuse or runaways or something like that. And the other thing I want to point out too, like I know we talked about how some of the women aren't real, but then this is even the other like disturbing part, is that a lot of the women that people look at, they are not alive anymore.
They're dead.
They're dead. Like you are lusting after a dead woman. Like that is crazy. Or like anybody looking at it, it's
who used to have life and vigor and felt a sense of purpose.
And then, of course, we always have to bring up is that is a person with a mother and a father at the very least, but brothers and sisters, relatives,
Who
people
was
that
created by God for a purpose,
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
who's woven, with the image of the Father,
Mhm.
yeah.
and
Um,
that's who they are.
So this
But yeah,
idea,
the porn industry is horrifying. It's
Mhm.
absolutely horrifying. But it's amazing how like a lot of people know this, and how many times have been, has Pornhub been exposed, and yet
Mhm.
nothing has happened.
Nothing has happened to him.
Nothing has happened. I mean, it's horrible. It's a dark place. It really is. And like you were saying, that majority of the time, these women are not doing it freely. Like they may have the appearance of doing it freely, but they're not. They're either under the influence, so they're coerced into doing things, or there's this horrific abuse of power between a man who's forcing them into these scenarios,
Mhm.
regardless of who it is, whether they're the one in the film or the outside of it holding the camera or directing it or whatever. Regardless, that there's a man who's mistreating the woman because they have been marinated in this crap too,
Right.
which is causing them to abuse as well. So it's just a cycle, right? It's this constant, perpetual cycle of abuse and use over and over and over again until it gets worse and worse.
Wounded people wound people. That's how it works.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But anyway, so it's horrible, it's horrific, and you don't want to participate in that because you clicking on a video, like you're supporting this, and so even if that's going to help you, like stop. Think of that. Every time you click on this video, look at the woman and recognize like who she is and whether or not she's even alive still.
Yeah.
And
I
don't
think
necessarily
that'll
look at
fix
it.
some things.
Yeah. And don't necessarily take it as like, oh, I'm a terrible person because I'm feeling this. Look past that and look at love at the person. That not saying it's like go look at porn like constantly and just being like, oh, I love that person. No, just like anytime you're tempted, like look at that person with love and see that that's a person. Not that, oh, I am hurting that person. Think there's a person on the other end.
Because the thing is what oftentimes what becomes twisted is this notion of what beauty is, right? Because obviously women are beautiful. Right. They're the pinnacle of creation, the most beautiful thing in all of creation, I would argue, right? And so you recognize that and you see that, and what beauty is it's God, and it's meant to bring us back to God and to like lift up our eyes and thank Him for beauty, right? So when we recognize beauty, especially in a woman, as opposed to use or the twisting it with lust, it's like saying, like, blessed is your dwelling place, O Lord, like that kind of concept, which brings holiness into the mix. That's just a little side I wanted to take there.
I think that's actually a good segue, actually, because
into
this idea is like we can kind of segue into like this. Why do people look at porn then? I mean, this is one of the reasons. Like if we moving into why look at porn. This idea is we talked about porn as a distorted desire, but behind every single distorted desire, both from a spiritual and a psychological point of view, is a genuine desire.
Yes.
So in this case, we're talking about from a spiritual sense, this idea is that looking after in two senses of the word, or in two senses, this idea is that looking after porn is you are looking after the beauty for the beauty of woman, for the beauty of marriage, for the beauty of commitment, the sexual union. All of those are good, great things, and that's what you're wanting after deep down, even though you're not satisfying them in the right way. And the other is like when you are looking for the beauty of the other, you're ultimately looking for God. So like connection with this imaginary woman and the beauty of her, you're looking for connection ultimately with God. Anytime we're looking for connection, we're looking for connection ultimately with God. So this idea is like, why, if it's so bad, why do I want it? And like, well, that's one of the reasons. Like this idea is that behind every distorted desire is a genuine desire that's not being fulfilled, or that's not being met.
Definitely.
So
yeah, 100%, 100% up and down, and it's twisted, and the father of lies, that's how he does it. The king of deceit, right? He takes good things and he twists it.
From another perspective, I want to kind of talk about like there is a psychological, I mentioned it not too long ago, but the idea of the cycle of shame is kind of how the process of an addiction works. So this idea is that addiction always springs from shame, which is usually come from some sort of unmet need and a wound. So there's this idea is anytime you are not being loved like fully, you are being wounded in some way. And then there's these things called the 7 deadly wounds. fear, abandonment, powerlessness, rejection, hopelessness, confusion, and shame. So all of those are wounds. And what happens when we're wounded in those ways, we get isolated. And this is the way the devil works. You know, he isolates us through this. We feel ashamed by this wound. Something about this wound makes us feel separated from everyone else because we feel ashamed of this wound. Like we somehow do not feel connected to everybody else. And then when we are then we're isolated. And in that isolation, we feel shame, and we have a compulsion to rid ourselves of that shame because no one likes shame. So we try to rid ourselves of that shame. So all a compulsion is from a psychological perspective, is trying to rid ourselves or do something about our shame. And so what happens is we turn to something like pornography in order to help rid ourselves of our shame. But the problem is that it does it temporarily, but as soon as the act is over, shame returns because we realize that it was a lie. Right. And the problem is, though, then that shame promotes further isolation, which promotes further shame, which promotes the act of the compulsive behavior. So every time we get more isolated and more ashamed of ourselves, the more it cycles, like the more it goes into itself, the more we need. And then as we talked about before, this idea is that we need more to like satiate that desire and to hide that shame because our tolerance goes up. And so that the addictive behavior just snowballs because so it's not necessarily always just, it's like, oh, I saw a sexy thing and now I'm addicted. Like this idea is that we always use addictive things, especially stuff like pornography, because it's trying to help us heal a wound or trying to meet a desire that has not been met in some way that it is insufficient for. So,
and then ultimately it's creating like an icon, right? It's creating like an idol, exactly, which is ultimately, you know, our hearts is longing for God and we want to be, you know, seeking the Lord and all these things because of that hole within us. And then, we're convincing that the healing process comes from the act itself. It comes from the female body. It comes from the act of sex, just even watching it, right? Or the pleasure that we receive. And then that becomes the idol. Well, surprise, surprise, it can't fulfill us. And so it's going to constantly fail at doing that. But ultimately our heart just longs for the Lord and to seek him above all things. So then guys, so next week we're going to talk a lot more about it. We're going to have a whole episode dedicated to how we can break free of pornography and then you know, heal those wounds as a result, right? But I think it's important for us to remember that like it is possible, that healing is a thing. You can break free of pornography regardless of what your brain says, regardless of what your body says, regardless of what society says. You can. And I just wanted to say one quick thing about it. So I keep harping on about the neuroplasticity of the brain. Well, studies have shown that after 90 days, the brain can reset itself, and these pathways can shrink, and your brain can normalize after 90 days, right? And that's not that long. It's only 3 months. It's only 3 months. Now that doesn't get rid of temptation, right? Yeah. So there's we'll talk more about how to deal with temptation in the next episode. But just know that the brain is designed after 3 months to reset itself. So you can be porn free in 3 months.
There is hope. I want everyone listening just to know that there is a hope. Like we did not just decide to talk about all this to condemn everybody listening to it and say, you know, anybody who looks at porn is terrible, because we're not, because as we've said, we have all struggled with this as well. So we speak from a point of understanding. Pornography is harmful. But we are going to talk a lot about like how you can stop pornography and how you can then heal from it so that it doesn't come back. So that's like idea of like plucking the weed, but also getting the root out so that it don't come back. So stay tuned. That we are going to talk about that part. We just want to give it its full due. So we don't want to rush through it at the end of this episode. We want to give everything its full due, but just know God is there, and that he loves you and that he's proud of you no matter what you've done and what you've seen, and that you are fixable, and you're just a loved child of God. Just because remember, the shame is part of the cycle. The shame is part of the trap. So don't let the devil tell you that you're terrible, because you're not. All right, and you can make it through this, and we're gonna help as best we can.
Yeah, the devil wants that isolation. He wants you to do that.
And just always remember Philippians 4:13. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
So what we would all like you to do right now is subscribe to this YouTube channel. Seizing Valor is a passion project for the three of us, and especially with this topic for today, this was like the pinnacle of something that is a horrible thing that a lot of men do go through, and I think the subject needs to be talked about. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel because and like this video and hit that bell icon, because it will help us out in the algorithm for exposure for one thing, but also a lot men and women will be able to see our messages as well. Also follow us on Spotify. I would love for you guys and these other two guys would love to see you guys increase our exposure on Spotify as well, where our episodes on there, and even video episodes. You guys can see our lovely faces. But also, we are on Instagram, Seizing Valor, where we do post additional shorts so that you guys may see us in short, dramatic fashion. But also, if you
shorts in the shorts.
Am I wearing shorts? I am wearing shorts today. Are all three of us wearing shorts?
No, I'm not wearing shorts. I could have lied, but lying's against the commandment, so I can't do that here.
But also check us out. Our email is seizingvalor@gmail.com. If you have any additional prayer requests that you want to keep private, if you don't want to keep it in the comments, please reach out to us on that. Reach us out.
Reach us out, guys.
Regis Philbin.
SeizingValor@gmail.com. Regis Philbin@gmail.com.
No, please don't email that email address. We don't know where it goes.
Prayer.
He's right around.
request.
He's right around the corner. We have him here. We've just been holding out on him.
Isn't he dead? Did he die?
Is he?
2 very boring minutes later.
Oh shoot, he did die in 2020.
Oh no. That's all right. We'll leave it in for the funnies. That's not really funny though, but
Rest in
whatever.
peace. Rest in peace, Regis.
We love you, Regis.
Regis.
I hope I love Jesus was your final answer.
Oh, I hope so. Please, Lord.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for our bodies and for the great gift that they are. Thank you for the gift of women and for what they bring to our lives as companions and partners, true friends who walk with us in God, who we are to be able to give our love and our respect and our total selves so we can die for them. Please, thank you for the strength to talk about such a tough topic. Thank you for the grace to be able to be vulnerable and, to tackle something that's not easy to tackle. It is very difficult, especially in our society. And I pray that you bless everybody, not even just those listening, but everybody who is struggling with a pornography addiction at this moment. No matter whether it's recent or long-standing, whether they're trying to quit or not, whether they're a man or a woman, just whoever is struggling with this terrible sin, this difficult sin, may they be helped, and just know that you are there and that you love them no matter what. When we and they go to porn and other things to try to, because we feel alone and because we think that it will satisfy that, because we think we've been abandoned, help us to remember that you always love us, that you're always there, that you never abandon us.
That's right.
And that you made us for more. You made us for more. You made us for genuine connection and love. So I pray that we all can experience that. We can all find that. That we are given the strength, no matter how far gone, that we can make that way back to you and to the women in our lives. That we have the strength to conquer this beast, and that you are accompanying us during that time. I pray for everyone who is involved in the pornography industry, for all the models that are so terribly treated, so terribly abused, so terribly unloved, that you may be with them and they know that you love them. And even for all of those at the top, all of those who do these terrible things, all for the sake of money, that their hearts may be changed, that their eyes might be opened, and that they might also come back to you. And just, Lord, help. I pray for everyone also who's listened to this, that they might be able to hold on until next week, where we can talk more in depth about healing and about how you walk with us through that healing. And that you can get us back to where we need to be. And I pray for, especially also for married couples who are struggling with this, because this is a very difficult thing for those that are within marriage, that you might strengthen their bond, and they might use the grace of the sacrament in order to be able to help break free with you. And just give us clean hearts, give us clean minds, and give us clean eyes. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you all for seeing us talk about this very sensitive topic, and we will see you all for part 2 next week.
Peace.
God bless.